Die sekretaris-generaal van die ANC, Magashule, het maandag 'n skorsingsbrief ontvang. Kan hy nog 'n laaste paar triks uithaal of is dit nou 'n neusie verby? Dr Piet Croucamp van MEI en Ebrahim Fakir van die Auwal Socio-Ekonomiese Navorsingsinstituut sluit by my aan. Piet, die ANC het in Desember 2017 al besluit dat diegene wat beskuldig word van misdade op sy moet staan. Hoekom nou vir skors?
Omdat dit 'n politieke heksejag is op ys. Dit is baie maklik. Daar's net twee mense waarvoor president Ramaphosa in sy lewe direk gegaan het. Die een is vir Jacob Zuma, ander een is vir Magashule. Anders is dit hy gesê nee, die volke moet hulle werk doen, die vervolgingsgesag moet hulle werk doen. Hy het mense aan sy kabinet aangestel wat ook korrup is. Daar is, ek kan vir jou 'n lys van 1000 ANC-kaders nou bring wat net so korrup of meer korrup as Magashule is. This is about power politics. As ek Magashule is, sal ek ook dink, ek gaan hom ook oor die boeg gooi van hierdie is politiek. Dit gaan nie werklik oor die feit dat ek krimineel aangekla is nie. Dit gaan oor politieke mag. Onthou net die sekretaris-generaal besluit hoe lyk die kieslyste, hy besluit die dag op die leierskapskonferensies. Hy het ontsaglik baie mag. En dit is die teken, dink ek, van Ramaphosa.
Ebrahim, so it's about power, or it's about justice, who knows, but does this mean at last that Ramaphosa has consolidated his grip over the ANC's structures?
Partly. Because it means that, as Piet is suggesting, he can probably deal with someone who he needs to deal with politically. But the reality is that he's not the only one. So for as long as you have ANC branches at branch level, which can still nominate people who are unsavory, who are repeatedly not just accused, but are actually charged for corruption, but if they keep getting nominated for positions as provincial chairs and for higher structures, including the National Executive Council, then I'm afraid that the tilt is always going to be in the balance, firstly, and secondly, there's always going to be a continuous game of brinkmanship, and there's never going to be any stability and real focus on the business of government and governance.
Just briefly, your view, Ebrahim. I asked Piet why it happens only now. Do you think that the slow pace of tightening the noose around the neck of Magashule was the right strategy after all? Because the National Working Committee was on board, the top 5 minus Ace was on board. Was it the right strategy?
I think it perhaps not right or wrong. The question is that it's a long game, so it's the long strategy. It's to try and build and consolidate the base firstly, and once you have that base consolidated, to try and act. Because let's just think about this, Valdemar. The president started off was his presidency, both as ANC president and a president of the Republic, by reaching out to constituencies outside the ANC, right? All of the multiple summits, all of the big talk shops and so on. He then had to change tack and build community and constituency inside the ANC, because coming up to a conference, coming up to elections, the outsiders are not going to be the people who vote. So you got to build constituency inside. But before you do that, you have to show up and build some kind of support. And I think now that he has the support, after pretending that we are going for unity and so on, he now has the basis on which to act.
Goed, Piet, ons het al baie gepraat oor die steun of nie wat Magashule en sy trawante geniet in die ANC. Dit lyk nou tog of dit 'n minderheid is, van die werkskomitee, minderheid van die NEK. Waar laat dit vir Magashule? Watter opsies het hy om of mee te gaan met hierdie besluite of om 'n stok in die wiel te probeer druk?
Ja, ek dink hy is in baie groot moeilikheid. Ek hoor jy sê dat dit 'n stadige proses was. Dis nie 'n stadige proses nie. Kyk na Eskom, dis 'n stadige proses. Kyk na VBS, dis 'n stadige proses. Kyk na vervolging in Suid-Afrika, dis 'n stadige proses. Hierdie was vinnig, dit was soos die pik van 'n slang gewees. Hy het vir Magashule gegaan van die begin af. Hy het hom vervreem in die top 6, hy het hom vervreem in die werkskomitee, hy het hom vervreem in die uitvoerende komitee van die ANC en hy het dit oor 'n baie kort rukkie gedoen. Hy het sy magsbasis gebruik om vir Magashule te gaan. Dit gebeur eintlik in 'n baie kort rukkie. So Magashule het nie werklike kans nie, want onthou net, hy het nie 'n populêre steunbasis buite die ANC nie. Hy het nie noodwendig 'n populêre steunbasis selfs binne die ANC nie. En eintlik is hy geïsoleer. Die enigste mense wat hom ondersteun is die walking wounded en natuurlik sit daar 'n groot garnisoen, omtrent 40% van die nasionale uitvoerende komitee mense wat self bang is vir die baljie en vir die waarskynlik dat die nasionale vervolgingsgesag aan hulle deure kan klop. Daai mense kon hy op 'n kol dit moontlik bestuur tot sy voordeel. Ek dink hy het bietjie daai voordeel nou verloor, maar dit was so gewees, daar's meer mense wat bang is dat hulle dieselfde pad gaan loop as Magashule, as wat daar mense is wat nie bang is vir daai pad nie.
So, Ebrahim, Jesse Duarte, who sent the letter on Monday saying that it's over for you is she fully on board or sufficiently on board so that Ramaphosa shouldn't lose any sleep over her at night?
Well, one would think that that's the game she was playing, right? In this brinkmanship that she's indicating that, Mr. President, I'm with you. But we know that not long before, she was actually with Mr. Magashule and that faction. So who knows? The factions are now beginning to shift and becoming fractions instead. We've been saying this for quite some time. So yes, she is on board, but one has to ask whether, Ace got his letter of suspension from the Joker. And I don't mean to trivialize this, but the reality is that I think they're all in trouble, including Ms. Duarte, because I think the president is well aware that he can't really rely on her fully. And she's aware, on the other hand, along with Mr. Magashule, that if he wants to build any constituency outside the ANC, at least in the alliance, he no longer has a youth league as Jacob Zuma had. He no longer has a organized labor formation in COSATU as Jacob Zuma had, and there is no vocal South African Communist Party behind him. So all of the bases outside the tripartite alliance are no longer available for mobilization and for use, both for Jesse Duarte, but also to an extent for the president. To the extent the president has it, he has it in much more truncated and weakened form than it was in the period 2005 till about 2015. Now, all of those organizations are a shadow of their former selves. So, he's got to keep his eyes open, and he does. I don't think he can rely on Jesse Duarte is the short answer to your question.
Piet, in Luthuli huis, en jy het vroeër verwys na die magtige posisie wat die kantoor van die sekretaris-generaal eintlik is. Luthuli huis is nou sonder Magashule. Waarvoor sal Ramaphosa hierdie skorsingstydperk wil gebruik om sy steun in Luthuli huis te konsolideer, om seker te maak dat hy sy sin kry in die opstel, jy verwys na verkiesingslyste en so aan. Waarvoor gebruik Ramaphosa hierdie skorsingstyd?
Hy het klaar begin. Die verkiesingslyste gaan geverifieer word deur Matthew Sposa en Glema Motlanthe. Hy het klaar begin om die mag weg te vat stelselmatig van Magashule.
Al geruime tyd gelede.
Al 'n geruime tyd gelede. En jy moet onthou, Jesse Duarte mag die brief geskryf het, but on authority of the National Executive Council and the National Working Committee. Sy het nie die brief geskryf in die sin van dat sy 'n gesag het om te sê ek skors jou nie. Dit is nie wat sy probeer doen. Sy sê on authority of these institutions, I do write this letter. So dit gee nie vir haar 'n groter magsbasis nie.
Baie dankie.